Alright, so today we will be doing the ninth chapter of O level in IGCSE Computer Science, which is called databases, and it is also one of the smallest chapters in our syllabus. Alright, so let's begin with the first topic, which is single table database. Right, so as the name suggests, this is obviously just a database that has only one table. Alright, and databases are structured collections of data, right? Therefore, this means that we can actually extract information in a very easy way as well, right? Just because they're numbered and they're structured and they have certain formats. All right, so the first thing that we need to know about single table database is that it has a few different terms, right? So the first term that we will study today is fields. All right, so fields are basically just the individual columns in the table. All right, so each individual column or each field inside a table actually has one type of data type. All right, so over here you can see that, let's just suppose that we have a field that is of student ID, right? It will have a data type of integer, right? So student ID can only consist of integers and not text or any other thing. All right, and if another field, let's just suppose that we're talking about this field over here, right? Let's talk about name. This name field will only be of type data type string. All right, and it can only store strings inside them. All right, so over here we have another term that is called records. All right, so records are basically just the individual rows in the table. All right, so over here you can see that I've shown a field inside a table and I have also shown a record inside this table. All right, so this is just a single table database in the example over here. Coming down to validation, which has already been discussed in chapter 7, so if you want to go over that again, make sure that you check out my video. All right, so coming down to the data types that are actually included in our syllabus. Data types are basically, as I told you before, categories of data that tell the computer how to interpret the values. All right, so the few data types in our database that we can use are text. All right, then we have character, boolean, integer, real, and date time. All right, so text is basically just a number of characters. Character is only storing one single character. All right, boolean can only have two values. It can either be true or false, one or zero, yes or no. It depends on your use case. Then we have integer, which is just storing whole numbers. Then we have real, which stores decimal numbers. And then we have date time, which stores obviously date and time. All right, so coming down to primary keys. So primary keys are actually a very important concept that you need to know about. All right, so a primary key is basically a field inside a database that is uniquely identifying each record. All right, so over here you can see that I have given an example of student ID, right? So student ID in this scenario will be the primary key. Why? Because this will uniquely identify each student. All right, so each student inside this table will have a unique student ID. All right, another thing that you need to know about primary keys is that they cannot be null. All right, so if you are adding a record inside a table, it will always have a primary key. All right, and another thing that you need to know is that the primary key cannot be changed. All right, you can change the location of the row or anything like that, however the primary key will never be changed. All right, so coming down to structured query language. All right, so this is basically one of the most widely used languages, which is also called SQL. All right, and this is one of the standard languages that are used for querying, maybe in Access or Microsoft Access, and even in Microsoft Excel or any other platform on which you can perform queries on databases. All right, so we will actually study some basic concepts about SQL. All right, so first of all, what you need to know is that this table is what we will be using through for an example to actually explain the concepts that are coming ahead. All right, so the first terms or the first commands that you need to know about SQL are select and from. All right, so the select and from commands are mandatory to use, whereas the rest of them are optional. All right, so over here you can see that I've given a small example of a select and from statement. All right, so after select, you basically have to write down the names of the columns. All right, so always remember that after select, you have to write down the names of the columns or fields that you need to extract data from, and then from item list. All right, so item list is basically the name of the table all right, whereas item ID and item name are basically the fields, all right. So over here you can see that when I perform this query, I get all of the item IDs and item names, all right, whereas in the original table we also have another price column which is not included, all right. So this is actually one of the advantages of using queries, right? It only gives you the specific data that you only need, all right. So over here we have another example of select steric from item list, all right. So this is basically representing all, right? So this basically means that you need to select all the columns in the table, all right. So over here you can see that written that you have to select all of the columns in the table. So coming down to where command, all right. So the where command is basically just used to specify a condition, all right. So let's say suppose that you want the item name and price of an item that has the item ID of 255, all right. So over here you can see that we just select the columns that we need, item name and item price, then we write the table after from, and then we add the where command and we write down the condition. So the condition is item ID should be equal to 255. So over here you can see that we just get the item name and price where the item ID is 255, right? So this is the original table which has item ID 255, the item name and price is coffee and 100, all right. So next we have order by command, all right. So this statement is basically used to organize the query, all right. So let's just get all of the fields from item list and then order them by price, all right. So it will basically take all of the table take all of the records and it will order it in ascending order of price, all right. So you can see here that in the original table it is not actually ordered, it was 20, 100, 50 and 20. However, over here it is ordered it by price in ascending order, 20, 20, 50 and 100, all right. So if you want to make it in descending order, you can just write down DESC after price, all right. Coming down to another statement which is the sum statement. So this statement is used to sum all integers or real values inside of a field, all right. So if you want to find the price of all of the items inside that list, you will just write select and then sum, and inside the brackets of sum you will write down the field of which you want the sum of, and then from and then the table name, all right. So over here you can see that this is the result that we will get, right? We'll just get the sum of price which is 190, all right. So the last one that we will study today is count, all right. So the count statement is basically just counting all of the records inside a field, all right. So you can actually just apply this to any field, you don't actually have to apply this to item ID, you can write item name or price, anything, all right. So this will basically just tell you how many items are actually meeting a certain condition, all right. So over here you can see that I want you to count all of the items inside this table where the price is 20, all right. So over here you can see that there are only two items which have a price of 20, right? So over here when we perform this query we get this answer which is count item ID 2, right? So this is basically just a simple overview of SQL query language. Alright, so I hope that you like this video. Make sure to like my videos and subscribe to my channel, and I will be uploading more videos more often. Also make sure that you share these with your other friends who are studying the same subject. Alright, I'll see you later.